uh, constitutional values constitutional values are embodied in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. So we'll look through the constitutional values via preamble. The Constitution of India starts with the preamble to the Constitution of India, which is an introductory statement to the Constitution of India. So the first question, how does it read? So as you can see on the screen, it reads as we, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure all of its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity. Assuring the dignity of individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution. So this is the preamble which is visible on your screen, and I read out. So we'll move ahead and we'll talk about the values of the Constitution, which imbibed in the preamble. Uh, so now, this preamble is basically a very brief introductory statement of what we have been inserted in the text of the Constitution. It set out it sets out the guiding purposes, principles, its philosophy, and its ideology of the Constitution. It is, of course, not enforceable in a court of law. I'm talking about the preamble, but preamble is still a very significant part of the Constitution. As originally enacted, the preamble describes the state as a sovereign, democratic republic. But in 1976, by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, changed this to read as sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. And now we are having sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So now we will analyze this particular phrases of the preamble to have a quite a good vision of the Indian Constitution. What Indian Constitution actually tries to establish and how the problems were tried to be sorted out. So we'll analyze all these questions uh, at the beginning of this preamble. Read out, we the people of India. So now the question arises, what does it signify, we the people of India? It signifies that power ultimately rests in the hand of the people. We, the people of India, have framed this constitution, so power flows from the people. The source of the power is the people. The constitution made by and for the people, and it is not given to them by any outside power. Though we know that the cabinet mission plan had a profound impact on the formation of constituent assembly, still we are very much aware that constituent assembly started its functioning with an independent status. It emphasizes the concept of popular sovereignty as laid by Rousseau. So now we'll talk about the values which mentioned in the preamble and the key words of the preamble. We'll discuss one by one each. So in that process, first I will talk about sovereign. What does it mean? Uh, Sovereignty implies supremacy or independence. That is, when a state is internally or externally free from all other forces or influences. It is called a sovereign state. India is a free nation, so it is externally free from the control of any of the foreign power. Internally, it has a free government formed on the basis of fair election, and that government is directly elected by the people and can make laws for its own to govern its own people. So it is sovereign. We are voting and electing the representatives who are taking the decision on the behalf of us. So uh, internally, this way, India is sovereign. And as I explained regarding externally, India is a free nation and it is externally free from the control of any one of the foreign power. So internally and externally free. The second term or the values, that is the socialist. The word socialist was originally not there in the constitution when the constitution was enacted. Uh, Later on, it was inserted by 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. Uh, it employs basically two things. The number one is social equality, and number two is economic equality. So now here the question arises: what is social equality? Uh, the absence of discrimination on the grounds of caste, creed, grade, and religion. So, no discrimination on the ground of caste, creed, religion, sex, or gender. And then comes the second question, economic equality. What does it mean? It means equitable distribution of wealth. India adopted the principle of mixed economy and democratic socialism. So it has incorporated the word socialist in its preamble. Next values, that is the secular, which is also the key word in the preamble. The word secular, uh, from the couple of years, this term is in news always. Uh, the word secular implies uh, that citizens of India are free to follow any religion, to worship their God of their own choice. So we all are free to adopt any religion, propagate any religion, and follow any religion and worship to any God. India is not having any official religion like many other states having uh, the state religion. So they are not secular. The next term is democratic. So the preamble starts with the phrases, as I read out in the very beginning, we the people of India. So this demonstrates the character, the democratic character, the first page, and the last part that is uh, give to ourselves this constitution clearly highlight the democratic spirit. The two things which I say, the very beginning phrase that is we the people of India, and in the last part you can see give to ourselves this constitution. This highlights the democratic spirit. Uh, we have accepted the norm of universal adult franchise. Just after the independence, uh, we adopted the norm of universal adult franchise. Initially, whomsoever have attained the age of 21 years uh, was eligible to vote. But later on, with the help of the amendment, this voting age has decreased. And so now, whomsoever attained the age of 18 years are eligible to vote. So we have accepted the principle of free and fair election on the basis of one man, one vote. Uh, Citizens of India enjoy certain basic rights, irrespective of their social, economic, and other status, and irrespective of caste, creed, color, sex, religion, etc. India is, of course, a republic. So now the here question comes, what does it mean? I mean, the republic, basically where the head of the state is directly or indirectly elected by the people. So in India, the president is indirectly elected. And if you will look at the in the Britain, Britain is not republic despite of them having the democracy because the head of the state in Britain is the monarchy, hereditary one. So Britain is not republic and India is republic. This is the basic thing which I distinguished and clarified. Uh, India is, of course, a republic because all the persons who are in charge of the government, uh, as well as the head of the state, are elected directly or indirectly by the people. There are very apparent overview of the preamble of the Indian Constitution. But if we turn our eyes with a critical insight uh, into these phrases of the preamble, certain things will become visible. Uh, it is true as K. Shankanam, a prominent Southern Indian leader, pointed out that this preamble indicates uh, that we moved three revolutions, that is, the political, social, and economical. So the question comes here, what is political revolution? Uh, it is revolution for having independent status. The second revolution, which K. Santanam talks about, according to that, what is social revolution? Uh, to get rid of any medieval culture or taboos based on birth, caste, creed, etc. And then comes economic revolution. So the question comes, what is it? It is transition from a primitive rural economy to scientific and plant agriculture and industry. So how we will transform ourselves from primitive rural economy When India got independence at that time, our economy was totally primitive rural economy, and it was the duty of the leaders at that point of the time to how to mold it into scientific and plant agriculture and industry. Uh, Radhakrishnan believed that this preamble, of course, was an exhibit of fundamental change in the structure of Indian society. Uh, all these were properly reflected in the declarations of the preamble. Uh, our preamble, of course, proves that Indian Constitution is the first and foremost a social document. Uh, not documented with legally permissible phrases. Uh, but if we turn our eyes with a critical insight, uh, then there's certain things will be very clear. So first, we the people of India, which is the beginning of the preamble, uh, question is whether the constitution has been actually framed by the people of India. Who were these people? So we'll focus on some of the points, the first thing, the Constituent Assembly. So I want to make the clarification here. The Constituent Assembly was a body which was elected uh, for the task of the making of the Constitution. So their main task was to make the Constitution for independent India. So the Constituent Assembly was a one-party body, is an essentially in a one-party country, that is the Congress. Why? Because just only one political party was in the dominant or in power, that is the Congress itself. So it has often been criticized as Congress Assembly. So the Congress people were duly represented in the Constituent Assembly, and no other sections of the people were found significant. The second thing, the minorities and women, they were mostly nominated members, not elected. Uh, we, the people of India, indicates having a democratic flavor. Uh, but there's minorities and women, uh, they were mostly nominated members, not elected. And why? You can understand it's all because of that to make it democratic, and all sections of the society must be represented at the time of the making of the constitution. Third point, uh, even as we talk about democracy, uh, only 14% of the population did cast their vote for sending their representatives in the provincial legislature as per the Government of India Act 1935. Uh, as these provincial legislatures uh, later sent their representatives to the Constituent Assembly. So the Constituent Assembly actually represented only 14% of the total population. So how it can be a representation of we the people of India? These are some of the questions which has been raised by many of the scholars and the critiques over that, and even the one of the major writer, that is the Grand Lawson, talks about all those things. Further, draft constitution was not placed for referendum. Uh, one thing is clear that considering the constraint of time and money, so even we need to look at the constraint of the time and the money. We had no better alternative but to have our constitution in this way. But still, eyebrows can be raised against these words. We, the people of India, have framed our constitution and have given us this constitution. Uh, we'll move on to the next feature, that is soft. So the question comes, what does it mean? Uh, I think I explained this. Okay, sovereignty means absolute power of the country, both externally and internally. So here the question comes, what about the external forces? Like before that, I will just review once again what I stated earlier for the clarification. Sovereignty means absolute power of the country, both internally and externally. So internally, Government of India needs to sort out various problems and need to compromise with various other social forces, including the fundamentalists, including the terrorists, and the other business organizations, and so many other organizations, uh, which is the common thing, which always comes under the newspaper every day. Issues related to it, the favoritism of the government towards certain policies, industries, and all those things. Uh, what about external forces? Externally, also, India needs to compromise its position as members of UNO, United Nations Organization, and also as a member of the Commonwealth, even more so on in the global economy, because which is interconnected. In the era of globalization, to have a solid footing in the world market, India needs to compromise a lot. Unless we won't get loan, we won't get technology. Uh, so, so far as declaration of sovereignty is concerned, it is questionable or it is, of course, not absolute. So, this way we'll move on to the next key term, that is socialism. It is a new insertion. Originally, it was not the part of the preamble. It was inserted in 1976. What does socialism mean? Uh, Socialism means uh, socialization of the means of production and abolition of private property. India always tries to move for equitable distribution of wealth. Uh, in 1948 and in 1956, industrial policies were taken, and in this, India moved ahead with the principle of mixed economy, giving more in this process. India was giving the more weightage to the public sector enterprises and limited scope for the private sector industry. But things changed. But since 1991, it has come back to its own position. That is, has to respond to the demand of globalization. Uh, so the policy of LPG, that is liberalization, privatization, and globalization, these three demands of the world economy had raised questions as to whether this word socialism should be there in preamble. So the question arises now. Uh, the next term, that is secular. India has no official religion but gives due honor to all the religions, be it Muslim, be it Buddhist, be it Christians, be it Hinduism or whatever. But uh, if the leaders of different political parties they fall prey to the religious leaders for winning elections, and if belonging to a particular religious group becomes the criteria for getting tickets in the election, then we can claim that India is a secular state. This question comes. And as you have seen at the time of the election, how the leaders have started approaching to the temple, mosques, and the churches and meeting with the religious leaders. So the intermixing of the religion with the politics. So the question arises over the claim of the secularism, uh, or whether by this way we can able to safeguard the tradition of secularism. The next key term, uh, democracy. India is a democratic country. India tries to conduct free and fair elections periodically. But does democracy only mean adult suffrage? क्या democracy सिर्फ adult suffrage से ही है कि just attain the age of 18 years and everyone is eligible to vote? The question comes, uh, everyone's right to stand in election is belied if there is discrimination on social and economic grounds. It is there. Everyone can contest the election. But if there is discrimination on social and economic grounds, then what? Uh, India's social and economic discrimination makes democracy a ridicule of the day, uh, because democracy means guaranteeing rights to all. Uh, Now, let's guess in a particular case on one side there is a very rich people and the other there is a vendor. Vendor may refers to like the streets, the person who is selling something in the streets. Uh, then what will happen? Uh, is a democratic spirit. So, first of all, we need to diminish the discriminatory line, and then we need to have a democracy to be fruitful enough. Uh, then, thus, equality, liberty, justice, all they just stand meaningless without economic equality and with social discrimination. So if the subalterns are exploited, subalterns refers to those who are marginalized and exploited uh, in the history from the long duration. So if the subalterns are exploited, if women are tortured, if backward and downtrodden are still deprived, then is democracy if of then is the democracy if a fruitful one for India? This question arises. Even with the recent incidents which is happening in and around us, so we need to think of that. Uh, Preamble declares fraternity, uh, assuring the dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the nation. Fraternity can be assured. Uh, Unity and integrity of the nation can be guaranteed if, in true sense of term, democracy prevails in the country. Uh, but where discrimination is so prominent, where exploitation is so severe in such a country, fraternity, unity, and integrity of the nation cannot be assured. Uh, just few words on this. mm, this part. Then we'll move on to the second part of the lecture. Uh, Equality, liberty, justice, social, economic, and political, all are to be ensured simultaneously. We admit that India, with its poor economy, poor and medieval social structure, it is not yet ready for accepting that a time, ready for accepting this at a time. But we need to, or the future of the nation, we need to go for this. We need to pay due respect to all the people of the country. And if we do that, if we go against discrimination, uh, then only we can ensure democracy. We can talk about fraternity. We can ensure unity and integrity of the nation. We'll move on to the second part of the lecture uh, that will cover fundamental rights. Uh, The second part of this session is more than a mere coverage of this academic trust area. Uh, it is rather a session for all the citizens of India because all the citizens must have a basic awareness about their rights because rights are the pillar of any mature democracy. Uh, the preamble to the Constitution of India establishes uh, that in India, uh, democracy emphasizes on the rights and dignified existence of the people. So it is our duty to enrich our legal resources than our rights. Uh, Fundamental rights in India has been ensured in Part 3 of the Constitution. The Indian Constitution has guaranteed some legal and some fundamental rights to its citizen. Uh, Even the resident that is who are not the citizens of India are being given certain basic rights like right to equality, right to worship, etc. As elaborate list of fundamental rights has been incorporated in the part 3 of the Constitution. Uh, Part 3 of the Constitution is like a charter of the rights contained in the Constitution of India. So, what is guarantees? The question comes, arises. Uh, it guarantees civil liberties in such a way that all the Indians can lead their lives in peace and harmony as a citizen of India. This was a brief. So now the question comes: what is fundamental rights? Uh, the rights which are considered essential for the development of personality of every individual and the protection of human dignity are known as fundamental rights. These rights are essential for the development of individual self of every citizens of India. These are the basic rights. Without this, an individual cannot develop himself or herself. Uh, on the basis of this statement, which I said, what we can see uh, We can say that fundamental rights protect citizens against any sort of arbitrary or exercise of power by the state. If a state is using uh, the power in the negative sense and putting certain restrictions or curtailing the things or the rights. So fundamental rights help upholding the basic human rights, which are absolutely necessary for the development of personality of the people. So the fundamental rights are derived from the enumeration of human rights. So the fundamental rights, as enumerated in Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, focus on the need for assuring fundamental unity of the nation by guaranteeing the access, by guaranteeing the access and the use of same facilities and the rights to all the citizens, irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, or any other sort of discrimination. There is a specific feature of the Indian Constitution, as visible in its Part 3. The Constitution guarantees rights of the individual against the rights of the individual against the state as well as against any private individual. Even this is safeguarding you against the arbitrary use of the power either by the state or either by any private individual. That is, neither the state nor any individual shall have the right to violate the right of other person. So no one having the right to violate your rights, or whether it is an individual or the state, it doesn't matter. No one having the right. And even the constitution is safeguarding if anyone is violating your rights then. So these rights are available to the residents and as well as the non-residents of India. So some rights uh, are there which are available to the residents of India and which are not even the citizens of the country. Not all the fundamental rights, but some of them. uh, the Constitution also guarantees the right of minorities against the majority. Uh, though the democracy is the rule of majority power, still Indian Constitution guarantees the rule of the minorities, which is very unique feature of our Constitution. So now let's brief you about the certain basic feature or attributes of fundamental rights. As I stated, fundamental rights is essential for the development of personality of every individual and the protection of human dignity. Uh, the fundamental rights were included in the Constitution because they were meant to protect the very spirit of democracy. Uh, so, what is democracy? Democracy is a rule by the people, for the people, and of the people. Uh, so, the people must be aware of their rights and dignity. Unless the people are given adequate rights, a state cannot ask them to perform their duties towards the government, towards the nation. So these fundamental rights are obviously indispensable part of the democracy, uh, which are to be duly recognized and protected by the state. Uh, so the fundamental rights uh, primarily protect the individuals from the state and obviously from any arbitrary actions taken by the government, as well as any sort of infringement or violation on any part of any private individual. For instance, uh, the Constitution abolishes untouchability uh, and also prohibits begari. Begari refers to just calling a people and taking the work from them and not paying for it. These provisions act as a check both of the state action as well as the action of private individuals. However, these rights are not absolute. These rights are not uncontrolled. They are the subject to reasonable restrictions as necessary for the protection of general welfare of the people. So they can also be civilly or selectively curtailed as the time and the occasion permits. So we'll talk about the fundamental rights, different aspects. Uh, since the fundamental rights uh, can only be altered by a constitutional amendment, their inclusion is a check, not only the arbitrary decision of the executive branch of the government, but also on the parliament and also on the state legislature. The fundamental rights are defined as the basic human freedom, which are necessary for a proper and harmonious development of personality. So the question comes regarding good citizen. So here, what did Aristotle say? Aristotle said that it is necessary to be a good person, but how come a person will be a good person? What all are the criteria? But every good person can never be a good citizen. It is not. ये जरूरी नहीं है कि हर एक जो अच्छा person है, good person है, कि he or she will be a good citizen. Why? Why I am saying that? Then what is the definition of a good citizen? The question comes. And these who arises, uh, these citizens is one who is aware of his rights. So who will be the good citizen? Is the one who is aware of his rights. जिसे अपने rights के बारे में पता है. Who can make his government accountable to perform his duties properly. uh, and the essences and this is the essence where the importance of this chapter lies. So fundamental rights are enforceable in the court of the law. It means that if your fundamental rights are violated, you can directly approach to the court. So part 3 of the constitution is justiciable. Any sort of the violation of fundamental rights can be addressed by the court. There is specifically one fundamental right which is known as the right to constitutional remedies, which is covered by Article 32 of the Constitution. Uh, in this Article 32, it has been said that if there is any sort of violation of our fundamental right, we can move to Supreme Court for the enforcement of this fundamental right. There is another provision that is Article 226. By using this Article 226, one can move to the High Court of a state if he feels that his or her rights are violated within the jurisdiction of that concerned state. So you do not need to approach to the lower court, then high court, then to the Supreme Court. You do not need to follow this pattern. With the help of Article 32, you can directly approach to the Supreme Court. And with the help of Article 226, you can directly approach to the respective high court. The condition is that that area must comes under the jurisdiction of that concerned uh, state of or the high court. The another thing we must remember that both the Supreme Court and the High Court can issue writs, and there are the 5 writs which shall be discussed later on. And these are the five V's like the habeas corpus mandamus, quo warranto, prohibition, and sanctuary. These V's are applied by the Supreme Court as well as by the High Court for the enforcement of these fundamental rights. So the fundamental rights have been grouped into these six subcategories. First is the right to equality, Article 14 to 18. So one by one, I sought to brief you. Uh, so as you can see, now, the part three of the Constitution enumerates all these fundamental rights. So, in this process, we'll talk about the first category, that is the right to equality, which has mentioned in the Article 14 to 18. Uh, what it says that all persons are equal before the law. So whether a person is at any post or the position, it doesn't matter. In the court, each and everyone is equal. Whether that crime has done by anyone, it doesn't matter. Each and everyone is equal. What does it mean? This means that all persons shall equally be protected by the law of the country. Then this Article 15, it also states that no citizen shall be discriminated against on the basis of religion, race, sex, creed, caste, etc. Every person has access to all public places, including playgrounds, hotel, restaurants, shops, etc. No one can stop you to enter into the any hotels or the restaurants or any playgrounds, the public places. Uh, Article 16, the state cannot discriminate against anyone in the matters of employment in any government office. The state cannot discriminate on the line of the religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or origin, etc., but having certain limitations for that on the place of birth. Then there's Article 17 of the Constitution, which talks about the abolition of the practice of untouchability. It says that the practice of untouchability is an offense and punishable offense, and it is punishable by Indian Penal Code and the law of the land. And Article 13, it abolishes any sort of any type of the acceptance of the titles, like in the British era, they were conferring the titles like Rai Bahadur, Khan Bahadur, and all these things. So now all these things have been banned. Only the educational and military titles have been conferred. Then comes the another varieties of fundamental rights, that is the right to freedom, which has mentioned in Article 19 to 22. Uh, this area covers the right of freedom of speech and expression. Basically, under this Article 19, the sixth thing comes. Uh, this area covers the right of freedom of speech and expression, right to form associations, right to move freely, reside in any part of the country, and right to practice any profession and take any occupation or the business. Uh, then there's Article 20, which talks about the protection in respect of conviction for offenses. If you have been arrested in any charge, then you have the right uh, to safeguard yourself. Then comes Article 21, protection of life and personal liberty. Uh, then comes Article 21A. It has inserted uh, in 2002 in the fundamental rights. This article was added in 2002. through the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act. Article 21A has been incorporated at that point of the time. It says that the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all the children of the age of 6 to 14 years in such a manner as the state by law may determine. Uh, then Article 22, protection against arrest and detention in certain cases. So if you will be, if anyone arrested under the UAPA, TADA, or any other like this unlawful acts, then having no trial for the 3 months initially. But if you are arrested on the nominal things, then the police must have to present you in the court of magistrate within 24 hours. And the police cannot keep you in custody for more than 24 hours. Then the another right against exploitation 23 to 24. In this article, the Constitution prohibits trafficking, forced labor, prohibit child labor, and protects any children working in any hazardous jobs who are below the age of 14 years. So then another one is right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. In the preamble, as I have already taken an in the preamble, when I read out, we have already taken an oath that we shall go for establishing a secular state. And this particular declaration is strengthened by the Article 25 to 28. So these four articles actually ensure religious freedom. Religious freedom means that every person has the right to practice, profess, and propagate the religion of their own choice. Uh, and therein lies the essence of secularism in India. That is, the state does not declare any religion as its state religion. A state is indifferent or impartial to all the religions that the country, that the people of the country want to follow. Then comes this right to cultural and educational rights. Uh, it is covered by Article 29 and 30. The Constitution states that all minorities, religious or linguistic, can set up their own educational institutions and in order to preserve and develop their own cultures. So, on time to time, the government takes the measures for the safeguarding of the minority language and their cultures, and especially this new education policy uh, is also in consonance with this to deliver the education or the medium of the instruction will be in mother tongue. Then comes the right to constitutional remedies, the last one. Uh, it is being given by the Article 32. So this is the heart of the fundamental rights, which is stated by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly debate. Uh, these fundamental rights in Part 3 of the Constitution is having a very unique feature. We can move to the court of law for the enforcement of our right. And if we move to the court of law, we can seek for the reads. We can ask for reads and ask for petitions and move for the enforcement of reads or the enforcement of fundamental rights. The Supreme Court and the High Court can ensure our fundamental rights, but so far as the Supreme Court is concerned, it can only apply these for the enforcement of our fundamental rights under the Article 32, that is the right to constitutional remedies. So there are reasonable restrictions on all these rights. Uh, just as you have seen by discussing from Article 14 to 32, I haven't talked about 31 because it deals with the right to property, which was previously being covered by Article 32, but not now. This article has been abrogated, repealed. Originally, it was a fundamental right, but it has been omitted by the 44th Amendment Act of 1978. It is now a legal right. Right to property is the legal right. It is a constitutional right, but not a fundamental right. It is being covered by Article 308, which says that no person can be deprived of his property save by law. Uh, So, Article 12 to 35, this area is covered by Part 3 of the Constitution. These are the most important part of the Constitution or treasure of democracy. But these rights can sometimes be suspended if there is a national emergency under Article 352. There's rights conferred by Article 19, that is freedom of speech, assembly, movement, etc., remain suspended, uh, which you can, if you are following the news recently related to this Hathras case, even because of the maintenance of the law and order, this is uh, the power sometimes which is misused by the government in the name of the law and order. So the right to move court for the enforcement of these rights may also be suspended by the order of the president if there is a proclamation of emergency under Article 352, which talks about national emergency. If there is the national emergency in the country, as per Article 352, then the fundamental rights will be suspended, not all, but some of them, except Article 20, 21, except Article 21, which talks about the right to life. In 1975, India faced such a situation. There was national emergency and our rights suffered a lot. Justice H.R. Khanna in 1976, he refused to support the government for infringement of rights, and he said that I spent sleepless nights, but could not go against the freedom of speech and expression to be used by the citizens of India. So, under the national emergency, maybe the security of the nation, maybe the greater national interest, fundamental rights remain suspended, uh, while implies that during that period, India becomes a non-democratic entity, an authoritarian state, because these rights are being left with the discretion of the ruling party. So these are the basic features of fundamental rights, and this basic feature of fundamental rights, except during emergency, and has nurtured well the essence of its democratic flavor. Yes, can I take another 10 minutes to talk about the third part, which is the duties?
Yes, sure.
So the third part, basically in this part, we'll talk about duties, fundamental duties, which has mentioned in part 4A of the Constitution. Fundamental duties to be obeyed by the citizens of India. Fundamental duties is an inalienable part of the Constitution. The duties prescribed in body, some of the highest ideas pioneered by the philosophers, social reformers, and political leaders of India. Uh, Fundamental duties are interwoven with fundamental rights. Uh, that is, no duty, no right, the concept. So, without duty, having no right. So, that is no right can be meaningless unless we perform certain duties on our part. So, if we want to enjoy our right, then we have to perform certain duties. So, fundamental duties help in strengthening the process of nation building. Uh, no democratic polity can ever succeed if the citizens are not willing to be active participants in the process of governance by assuming responsibilities and discharging citizenship duties and coming forward to give their best to the nation. The most important task of the Indians is to reconcile the claims of individual citizens with those of the civic society. Uh, Therefore, it is important to orient the individual citizen to be conscious of the social and citizenship responsibilities and duties so that nation building in India can be a very healthy process. Therefore, awareness of our citizenship duties is an important as awareness about our rights. Every right implies a corresponding duty, but every duty does not imply a corresponding right. Uh, Man does not live for himself alone. He lives for common good and he lives for the nation. So, the part containing the fundamental duties is as important as the part containing fundamental rights. Uh, Fundamental duties, however, are defined as moral obligations. Uh, this part containing fundamental duty was never a part of the original constitution. It was being incorporated in the constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act. Uh, then it contained the 10 points and the 11th points was inserted by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002. Uh, this duty is said in Part 4A of the Constitution concern the individual as well as the nation, though they are legally not enforceable. They are held by the Supreme Court to be obligatory for the citizens. In the 1976, the Sharda Singh Committee recommended for the incorporation of fundamental duties and to give effect to the recommendation, and it came into effect from 3rd January 1977. Uh, just will shortly brief you about the 11 fundamental duties, which is on the screen. The first one is that we will abide by the Constitution, we will follow the Constitution and respect its ideas and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. Second, we will cherish and follow the novel idea which inspire our national struggle. So we will follow the ideas which inspired by the freedom struggle. Uh, Third, will uphold and protect the sovereignty, integrity, and unity of India. Fourth, we will defend the country and render national service whenever there is the need for this national service will be available for that. So render national service when called upon to do so. And the next, to promote, we will promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, regional, or sectional diversities. We will not uh, uh, come across all those things which can be the barrier. We will promote the brotherhood despite of all these things. Uh, then we will value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. And then we will protect and improve natural environment like just say forest, lake, river, wildlife, and to have compassion for the living creatures. This is our duty to safeguard and protect all those things. This is our duty not to throw the garbages in the rivers and not to follow the rivers and not to kill and hurt the wildlife while we are going to visit the wildlife sanctuaries. And the next thing we shall develop scientific temper, humanitarianism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. And then we safeguard public property and not to exert violence. And the next, we will renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. So we need to look over this, how much we are fulfilling the duty as a citizen, uh, because the incidents which are happening in and around us, so we need to re-look at all those things. What is missing? The values, we need to find out that. And to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to the higher level of endeavor and achievement. Just last few words. Every citizen who is a parent or a guardian to provide opportunities for education to his children, or as the case may be heard, between the age 6 to 14 years. These were the 11 fundamental duties to be performed by the citizen of India. Uh, we'll take last 1 minute. Some of the fundamental duties are moral duties, while some other are civic duties. Uh, these are confined only to the citizens of India, like the DPSP, Directive Principles of a State Policy. The fundamental duties are also non-justiciable. These fundamental duties are recognized as moral obligations that actually help in upholding the spirit of nationalism, and as well as to support harmony of the nation as well as of the citizens. These duties can be classified accordingly as related to environment, duties towards the state and nations, and also towards yourself. However, the main purpose of incorporating fundamental duties is to encourage some sort of patriotism among the country's citizens. But these are the duties not enforceable in a court of law. Questions have always been raised regarding the practical utility of Part 4A of the Constitution. However, Supreme Court has said in the case that is the Headmaster versus Union of India, is the case of 1983 that these fundamental duties are also very important of the Indian Constitution, which is a part which is absolutely obligatory for the citizens of India. It has also been stated that fundamental duties, though not enforceable by the mechanism of judicial review, but may be made effective through legislation or certain ordinances or directives of the government. So, thus, attention should be given to the Part 4 and 4A of the Constitution as it is to give to the Part 3 of the Constitution through Part 4 and Part 4A are not enforceable directly, which means the DPSP and fundamental duties. Uh, they can be made effective through adequate legislation. So, this is the moral duty of all of us while enjoying the rights we must follow the duties as well that will make the balance and harmony in the society and must think about the rights of the another person uh, also. So this way we'll end the lecture here. And if you have any question, then you can ask.
Thank you, sir, for such an informative session and an insight into the Indian Constitution, preamble, democracy, and the fundamental rights. Thank you very much, sir. Now the platform is open to all the participants for any questions or any doubts.
Uh, as Assis asked, which rights are said to be absolute rights? Are all fundamental rights absolute? So the answer to your question, all the fundamental rights are enforceable in the court of law only at the time of peace. But your fundamental rights will be curtailed or suspended when the national emergency has declared. And irrespective of that, sorry, other than that time, other than the time of national emergency, your fundamental rights are absolute. And but and along with this, you must safeguard the rights of another person. While enjoying your rights, you may not intervene in the right of another person. So that you need to be careful and by the way, your rights are absolute. And if anybody is violating and you seems that you can approach to the court and you do not need to follow the norms like the lower court, higher court. You can directly approach to the high court and the Supreme Court for that. Any other question?
Anybody would like to ask some questions?
Okay, there are as you see, you will find in the Indian Constitution, uh, as you asked, okay, Deepak, how many parts are there in the Constitution of India? So that is 22 parts. Okay. So basically, the things which I discussed, fundamental rights, which has mentioned in the part 3, and the fundamental duties in part 4A. Can I appeal in the court if my rights are violated by the state? Yes, you can. Uh, you can file a case directly into the Supreme Court if your rights are violated, but only fundamental rights, not other rights. As I asked by Pratik, and you can approach to the High Court only when that jurisdiction comes under that respective high court. Suppose take an example of this Uttar Pradesh. If your rights have been violated in the Uttar Pradesh, so that area comes under the jurisdiction of this uh, Allahabad High Court. You can approach, but your rights are violated in Delhi, so you do not, you cannot approach to the High Court of Allahabad. For that, you need to approach to the Delhi High Court or the Supreme Court. Is this clear? Uh, Prateek. And,
Shankar Shah is also asking the same
okay.
thing. How many rights and duties are there in Indian Constitution?
Duties are 11, which I told you, which has mentioned in Part 4E, and fundamental rights, which are mentioned which are mentioned in Article 12 to 35, but mostly the major articles are 14 to 32. And among the one, that is the Article 31, has been repealed, that is the right to property, which is now the legal right, which has mentioned in Article 300E. Prateek, you are asking under which article? Okay, so you can approach to the High Court by the provision of Article 226, and you can approach to the Supreme Court by the provision of Article 32. Is it clear, Prateek? And any more question? And thank you everyone for listening to me and having a patience for almost 1.5 hours.
Thank you, sir. It was a really informative session and valuable for the students and all of us. Thank you, sir.
Okay. And we'll share the PPT with you, and if the students wish, then you can share with them. And
Yes,
once
sir.
again, thank you to you and the organizations and other faculty members for providing this opportunity to share this information to our students.
Thank you, sir, on the behalf of the Civil Engineering Department.
Thank
Okay, so the instruction for the participants, a feedback form link has been shared with all of you. You can check your official mail. Kindly just put your valuable feedback in that.